All right, today we're going to talk about 3 quick pistol tips for beginners. It's going to be proper grip, sight alignment, sight picture, and trigger control. All right, so proper grip, right? Proper grip. Being a left-handed shooter, obviously I'm going to grip the pistol as high as I can up in what we call the beaver tail or the tang, depending on what terminology you want to use. So you want to get your shooting hand as high up in there as you possibly can, right? You're going to take your other fingers firmly, not gripping it to death to where you're shaking the gun, but not loosely. Firmly grip the rest of the pistol with your middle finger, ring finger, and pinky finger. Your trigger finger, obviously, you can ride it on the frame here or on the slide. It depends. It's up to you. But we're not going to put it inside of the trigger well. Never, ever, ever until we are ready to fire. Okay, so that's where our shooting hand's going to be. The rest of this space here, right here, the rest of this space, we're going to take our support hand and we're just going to fill the rest of this space in, right? We want our hands, this support hand to kind of meet in here with our thumb pointed towards our target or down the rest of the frame. As much of this hand as you can, right? You want to try to fill in this part of the slide and let the rest of the meat of your hand just fill in that gap right there. Okay? That's going to be our proper grip right there. As far as pressure, we're going to squeeze it firmly just like we are with our shooting hand. We're not going to talk about percentages. We're not going to talk about, oh, you want 50% on this hand, 50% on this hand, 60%, 40%. That's too much math to do while you're just trying to learn how to shoot a gun and shoot a pistol. And if you build the proper fundamentals, you'll learn how to better tweak your grip as you go along. All right, number 2, sight alignment, sight picture, right? There's this phrase called equal light, equal height, okay? And what that means is we want to line up our rear sights with our front sight post. We want to have equal light on each side. We want to have equal light on each side, and we want our front sight post to be equal with our rear sights. Okay, that's what equal light, equal height means. All right, and we're going to do our best to keep it right there as we're shooting. All right, number 3, trigger control. Okay, trigger control is probably the hardest part about all of this. Okay, if you're slamming on the trigger, right? If you're anticipating your shots, right, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna squeeze, and you push down like that, or if you're catching one side of the trigger, it'll tend to push the gun one way or the other, right? So what we want to do is, however big your hands are, it doesn't matter. This first pad of your finger right here, right? We want to try to get it somewhere in the middle of that pad, okay? And all we're going to do is we are going to push that one part of our finger, that first little pad, we're going to push it straight back into the frame, all right? We're going to push it straight back. Straight back. All right? And there's a really good trick that you can do with this at home, dry firing. Okay, what you do is you take a penny or a quarter or whatever you want. I prefer a penny. I put it right behind the front sight post. Okay, so I get up here, get my sights right, or get my grip right. I'll put the penny right there, and I'll hold it up nice and slow, and I'll slowly pull that trigger without disturbing the sights and without having that penny or coin fall off my slide. Okay? Just like that. Nice and easy. And as new shooters, right, what you want when you start shooting, when you go to the range, when you're first learning how to shoot, what you want to do is to best learn trigger control and sight picture, sight alignment, proper grip. what you're going to do is you kind of want the gun to surprise you. Now, I know that sounds kind of stupid, right? But what we're trying to avoid here is anticipating the gun going off, right? Because that's where a lot of people run into mistakes. So I know we weren't going to talk about percentages. So what we want to do is when we're first starting learning how to shoot, is when we're ready to shoot, we've got our proper grip, right? We've got our sights aligned. Okay, we're going to put our finger on that trigger, and we're just going to slowly add more pressure on that trigger, and then we're just going to wait for the trigger to go off. Okay, here it is again. Right here, finger on the trigger, nice and slow, slowly adding pressure, and it goes off, right? I don't want to try to time this to where I know, okay, now I'm going to shoot, right? Because if I go, now I'm going to shoot, a lot of people have a tendency to dip the front of that gun down because they're trying to anticipate the recoil. Okay, so I lied. There's going to be 4 tips. We're getting a bonus tip here. Okay, so mitigating recoil as a new shooter, right? So we've talked about proper grip, filling in that space, having a firm grip, taking our support hand, filling in the rest of this here, right? Sight alignment, trigger control. So for recoil control, what we want to do is when we're presenting the gun out, okay, we're going to push our elbows together, okay? Push those elbows together, lock them out, right? We don't want to try to constantly push them together. We just want to push them together, lock those elbows out. With our wrists, you want to lock your wrists out, almost like you're punching a punching bag or a heavy bag or something like that. You want to lock that wrist out on both sides, okay? Especially your support hand. You want to lock that grip out, all right? Lock those wrists, lock those elbows, and then practice that nice, smooth trigger control, right? We're just adding tension slowly until the trigger goes off and it almost surprises us. So, to practice all of this, I have a great drill. I call it the 28 dot drill, slow and controlled fire, whatever you want to call it, right? These are 28 1-inch circles, right? Dark circles. So what we're going to do is 1 shot on each circle as we go along, nice and smooth, nice and controlled. We're not trying to break world records. We're not trying to shoot fast. We're not trying to do any of that. We're just working on our fundamentals. That is all this is about, especially as a new shooter. All right, so now that we've gone over all those, I'm going to run a drill real quick, the 28 dot drill. I'm just going to do the first row of, 7? Yeah, 7 by 4. So I'm going to do the first row of 7, and then we'll go look at the target and see where I made mistakes, what I need to work on, all that kind of stuff. So let's run it. All right, let's go take a look at this target. So, as you can tell, I had a couple boo-boos, right? So these were likely my front sight posts and my rear sights not being aligned. A little bit of trigger control, all that. So this is a great drill if you're a beginner. If you're a beginner, you can use a 2-inch circle right in the middle of this paper and work on that. Okay, so I'm going to run a drill where I have a 2-inch circle in the middle of a target and show you what that looks like. All right, so we've got our 2-ish inch circle, maybe 2.5, 3, I don't know. I didn't bring a tape measure or a ruler. So we're going to run the same thing, 7 rounds on this target, and we're going to go take a look at it. All right, let's go take a look at it. Now, I shot those a little fast. I mean, it was pretty slow. Had a couple mess ups. But this is one of the reasons why I like using black circles when I'm shooting. Okay, whatever the target is, I like it to be blacked out. So we see here that I had 4 rounds right here, 3 rounds up and to the right. Okay, so I need to work on my grips a little bit, my sight picture, sight alignment, right? My pressures in my hand. Okay, so that's what that's going to look like. So let's run it again. All right, let's go take a look at it. So we had a little bit cleaner of a target here, a little bit better of a grouping. So as you can see, I dropped around here, right? So for me, I know that was my sight alignment. Okay, I'm running some different sights here. I just started using suppressor height sights, right? Still getting used to them. Again, this is why this is a good drill. If you're messing with your equipment, if you're trying new sights, if you're just starting out with a red dot, you know, whatever the case is, this is why this is a good drill, because you can start where you can learn how your equipment operates, right? I mostly stick with my red dot on this, okay? The reason I have suppressor height sights or red dot height sights, whatever you want to call them, is because you never know when your red dot's going to go out and fail on you, right? And in the middle of a gunfight, we want to have something to aim with. That's my opinion. You know, if you change your battery once every 6 months or once every year on your birthday, that's a good way to do it, so that way you don't forget. But if you do it once a year, you shouldn't have any problems. But Murphy's Law applies to everything, right? When something goes wrong, everything's going to go wrong. So that's why we want to have something that won't fail on us. All right. Now, when we start getting a good feel for our fundamentals, okay, one good drill that we can run is called the build drill. It's 6 rounds, as fast as you can go, accurately, well aimed, using all of your fundamentals. Okay, I'm going to run that a couple times and show you what that looks like, and show you where, you know, according to my shot placement, where my weaknesses are. So let's run it. Let's run it twice, and then we'll go over the target. All right, let's go take a look. So all the circles that outside of the A ring, the A square, the A box, whatever you want to call it, that don't have lines are the rounds from this bill drill. Okay, so as you can see, I had one round here outside of the A box. I don't like to see that. I had a grouping here. So again, that tells me that I need to work on my trigger control a little bit more. But overall, halfway decent. Not the best, not the worst. Pretty okay. So, if you all like this content, if you want to see more of it, more beginner shooting, fundamentals, all that kind of stuff, let me know. Drop a like, subscribe, whatever it is. If you want to make your own 28 dot target, I use Word Doc for it. I picked the size of a circle and just copy and pasted it, 4 rows of 7, super easy.